Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into Dr. Susan Edwards' core essay, What's Next? Imagining the Future, where we'll look at humanity's age-old obsession with predicting tomorrow. From there, we'll pivot over to the Theme 4 essay, and that's where we tackle the ultimate philosophical tightrope. How on earth do we balance our personal freedoms with our heavy responsibilities to one another to actually build that future?
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Imagining Our Shared Future.
Now, predicting the future, it's not just about, reading tea leaves or staring into a crystal ball. It is a rigorous pursuit that has totally shaped our history. For centuries, brilliant scientific minds have tried to foresee what's on the horizon, driven by this really deep desire to literally hold the future in our hands and actively shape the world of tomorrow.
And honestly, science has a pretty incredible track record of foresight. Take Dmitri Mendeleev. When he created the periodic table, he literally left blank gaps for elements he mathematically knew had to exist. And guess what? He was right. Then you've got Nikola Tesla. The guy was envisioning wireless devices small enough to fit in your pocket way before the smartphone was even a twinkle in anyone's eye. He even demonstrated a remotely controlled boat back in 1888. I mean, that is just mind-blowing, right?
But, well, even absolute geniuses have their blind spots. Take Tesla again. He incorrectly believed that systematic reforestation and pure science would just automatically eliminate wars, droughts, and floods. Yeah, not quite. As the poet T.S. Eliot noted, predicting shiny new gadgets is one thing, but understanding the human meaning, like what humans are actually willing to do to secure those futures, is a much harder puzzle to solve.
Which brings us to Section 2, the power of solidarity. So moving beyond just to tech, experts argue that a better future actually relies entirely on how we coordinate with each other. Harvard professor Amy Edmondson calls the future of work teaming, and teaming essentially means collaborating on the fly. It's diverse groups coordinating seamlessly across space, time, and cultural boundaries. Think of a 24-hour hospital staff made up of strangers working flawlessly to save a patient, or a massive group of Disney animators bringing a huge vision to life.
And this really perfectly captures primatologist Jane Goodall's brand of radical, actionable hope. She recognized that sure, stories of doom and gloom are sometimes necessary to wake us up, but her bottom line is crystal clear. To quote her, "It's no good just talking about what should be done. We've got to flipping well do it." Repairing the world means rolling up our sleeves and acting in total solidarity.
All right, let's get into Section 3, the Liberty Paradox.
This is where things get really tricky. Because if the future requires this intense level of collective effort, well, what happens to our individual freedom? This introduces the core dilemma of the Theme 4 essay. It forces us to ask a deceptively simple question. Are we actually free to do whatever we want?
The absolute most crucial task here is balancing individual liberties, our freedom of choice and expression, against our social responsibilities, which are our obligations to our community and to civil order. Scholar David Kinley warns that this is a true paradox. Embracing ultimate freedom without taking on any social responsibility, that leads directly to chaos, hypocrisy, and eventually even tyranny.
And look, we aren't just talking about abstract academic theories here. We navigate this exact tension in real life all the time. Just think about navigating pandemic restrictions, or figuring out how to respond to hugely disruptive technological innovations, or addressing those urgent global climate change warnings. Every single one of these scenarios forces us to weigh our own personal liberties against our collective responsibilities.
Moving on to Section 4, the Digital Town Square.
Let's ground all this lofty philosophy in a very modern, everyday example from the research of Yadin and colleagues, the digital spaces where we spend so much of our time. Their research dives into the extreme incivility we see in online comment sections. Because here's the thing. If an environment is totally unrestricted, it quickly becomes hostile, which effectively silences vulnerable voices. So the question is, how do you facilitate free expression while also creating a civil environment?
It's a massive ethical question for tech companies, really. Do social media platforms have a responsibility to use automatic and manual filtering to minimize our exposure to uncivil content? Doing so creates a huge dilemma because it directly limits an individual's free expression in the name of social responsibility. It is literally the Liberty Paradox playing out right there on our screens.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Shaping What Comes Next.
So, as we try to solve these massive digital and societal paradoxes, Dr. Jane Greenway Carr outlines a really clear path forward for us. First, we have to be brave enough to ask the difficult questions.
Second, we need to think deeply and critically about the answers without jumping to quick conclusions. And third, listen to others and never stop investigating. We absolutely have to refuse to settle for easy answers. Because honestly, solving the Liberty paradox and figuring out how to coordinate globally, they aren't just technical problems. They require highly creative, forward-thinking solutions. As Charles Kettering, the historic head of research at General Motors, so famously believed, our imagination is the only limit to what the future might bring.
Building that better future is fundamentally a hopeful, imaginative act. Researchers Hunt Hendricks and Taylor suggest that true solidarity requires constructing a bigger us, an us that is large and powerful enough to overcome our obstacles, rooted in genuine curiosity about other people and a radical openness to change.
I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. In the face of these incredibly complex global challenges, how will you use your voice in your imagination to navigate the Liberty paradox in your own community? The future isn't just something that happens to us. It's a shared project. It's something we build together. Thanks so much for exploring this with me.